The system tasked me with redeeming the depressed, suicidal, disabled antagonist. After pulling him back from the brink of death time, and again, I grew weary. The thought of having to save someone else when I was already dead myself filled me with rage. So I leaned close to the villainess' ear and whispered maliciously, "I've got a foolproof method, want to give it a try." When I transmigrated here, the story had already reached its conclusion. Everyone had found their redemption, leaving no room for me to intervene. The system rummaged through its database for ages before finally spotting the suicidal antagonist lurking in a corner. He looked up and asked me, "Do you want a villain the kind with crippled legs?" While I hesitated over whether I was qualified to redeem someone else. The villain Thomas revealed his devastatingly handsome face. I immediately grabbed the system that was about to move on to the next world. I do. So the system arranged for me to become the antagonist Thomas' nanny. This way I could complete the redemption mission up close. I was puzzled, how could he still afford to hire a nanny after being bankrupted and crippled by the male lead's retaliation? System, a starved camel is still bigger than a horse. I pressed my lips together in silence. Fine, I'll fight you rich people to the death. Though bankrupt, Thomas remained oblivious to how much wealth he still possessed, enough to make countless laborers green with envy. Yet every day he wallowed in self-loathing, gloomily wishing for death. Like right now, he sits by the roadside in his wheelchair, calculating the perfect moment to plunge into traffic. I disrupt his carefully timed plan, grabbing the handles of his wheelchair and yanking him back. No way, if he charges and that the first casualty would be that breathtaking face of his, the one that captivated me with just a single glance. Don't underestimate the power of looks. I preempted Thomas before he could get angry. What are you doing? Do you have any idea how many people you could kill by doing this? How many innocent families you could destroy? Whether you succeed in dying or not, they will suffer. Because of your recklessness, even a passerby like me could get hit by a car swerving to avoid you. Thomas, whose eyes had been blazing with anger, calmed down at my words, his gaze dimming. He slumped back into his wheelchair and spoke softly with guilt, "I'm sorry." I crouched down to pick up the vegetable basket I'd frantically thrown aside to save him earlier, noticing the broken eggs and couldn't he help muttering in complaint. See, now we've got food waste too. The principle of not wasting food is ingrained in every citizen's DNA. Upon hearing my words, Thomas hung his head even lower in shame. I carried the vegetable basket back while he silently followed behind in his wheelchair. The system was shocked. He just obediently followed you back like that. Of course, even though I don't know how to redeem him, yet I can always resort to moral manipulation. Just look at how much he hates his mother. Even though he clearly knew the male lead was driving the car at her to lure him out, he still pushed her aside without hesitation and took the hit himself. That is how I knew he was a responsible person with strong morals, someone who wouldn't want to cause trouble for others because of himself. I don't want to involve innocent people just because I'm using a car accident to seek death. Actually, I've read the complete story of this book through the system. After finishing it, my impression was that the main antagonist, Thomas, was too tragic. In elementary school, his biological father died in an accident, and his mother remarried into a wealthy family with him. His wealthy stepbrother was the male lead of this book. To please her new husband, his biological mother favored the male lead, allowing him to bully her own son. Even when both were kidnapped, she chose to save the male lead instead. As the abandoned one, he was tortured by the kidnappers before being sold off. After enduring countless hardships to escape and return, he found his mother happily reunited with her new husband and stepson, having long forgotten about him. Heartbroken, he left, and through immense struggle built a business empire powerful enough to rival the male lead's family. He sought revenge against the male lead with frenzied determination, yet both his mother and the girl he loved sided with the male lead, pleading with him to let go. His heart softened, but the male lead, protected by plot armor, counterattacked, seizing his company and utterly destroying his reputation. Despite everything, he still went to save the mother who had abandoned him at the last moment, only to have his legs crushed by the male lead. In the story's ending, the male and female leads live happily ever after, while the mother remains the wealthy lady of a prominent family. Only he was left to wither away in a forgotten corner. Two stubborn villains never give up easily. So, he wouldn't give up on seeking death just because of my moral manipulation. If he couldn't die outside and trouble others, he'd die at home. I finished cooking and called him to eat, but there was no response after shouting for a long time. The system suddenly popped up. He seems to be cutting his wrists in the room. "You should be," told me earlier. The door was locked from the inside, and it took me several hard shoves to break it open. He had already slit his wrist, blood dripping down the wheelchair in steady drops. Seeing him relaxed and his wheelchair, eyes closed as he waited for death to take him, made my blood boil. So many people struggle to survive, yet here, he was throwing his life away like this. I angrily snatched the knife from his hand and threw it away. Then I quickly fetched the first aid kit to stop his bleeding and bandage the wound. I deliberately didn't hold back with my movements. I wanted him to feel the pain, to remember this lesson well. Yet he showed no reaction at all, as if he couldn't feel anything. I forgot those with dead hearts can't feel pain. I sighed weakly, softening my movements as I bandaged while lecturing. "Do you know how many people in this neighborhood are burdened with massive mortgages just to buy a home? Do you realize how much your death at home would affect the property values here? Do you know how much psychological trauma it would cause me if I opened the door and found a corpse?" He froze, completely stunned by my rapid-fire questions. After tying a neat little bow around his wound, I looked up and fixed my gaze on him. My eyes held a silent warning, "You'd better behave, kid." He finally reacted, turning his head away. "Got it." Says he understands but dares to do it again next time. Beautiful and obedient, yet never changes. With this stubborn temper, when will I ever complete the mission? Life is hard, sighing like a baby. It's all the system's fault. Why did it have to assign me a redemption mission? If you asked me to draft a suicide plan for Thomas the First, have it down pat. System, come out and take your beating. The system knew it was in the wrong and stayed silent. What a useless thing. What good are you? Practical benefits still depend on me. I yanked open Thomas' shirt, exposing his chest muscles that hadn't completely wasted away yet. Your clothes are dirty. Take them off and change. Thomas ignored me, letting me undress him freely. So pale and pink, just like his face deserves. The texture was nice too. I can't imagine how stunning he must have been before the injuries and ruin. I wanted to keep taking off his pants, but he stopped me by pressing my hand down. TCH, how stingy. Seeing his slightly reddened ears, I thought he didn't care about anything. But touching him was a win. My work frustrations successfully melted away. After cleaning Thomas's bloodstains and changing his clothes, he made me leave. Before the door closed completely, I saw him struggling to move onto the bed through the crack, lying down with his back turned. His broad shoulders were utterly dejected, devoid of any living energy. I shook my head and turned to leave, letting him wallow in his gloom alone. But the silence didn't last long. I came back soon enough. This time holding the rice bowl, knowing he wouldn't eat, I directly brought it to his lips. But he still resisted and refused to open his mouth. I escalated my tactics. If you don't eat, you'll starve to death in this room. Reluctantly, he opened his mouth and ate. It tasted like chewing shit. Was it really that bad? I scooped a spoonful into my mouth, perfect in color, aroma, and flavor, quite delicious actually. He stared at me in shock, absolutely refusing to take another bite no matter what. Do you have to be so disgusted? Hurt? Wanna see abs? 3. Not sure if it was the emotional blackmail that worked or if my pestering did the trick. Thomas started going out the very next day. I thought he'd finally come around, ready to see this bright world. I never expected he was scouting locations for his own suicide. This time the system didn't slack off and sent me an alert in advance. By the time I rushed to the riverbank, I just saw Thomas jump in. Without hesitation, I jumped in after him. Fortunately, I took swimming as an elective in college, otherwise both of us would have been done for today. I rescued him in time. Thomas only choked on a few mouthfuls of water. He lay on the ground coughing violently, and when the fit subsided, he began pounding his legs with furious blows. Why did you save me? Why won't you let me die? I have no reason to exist at all. My being in this world is nothing but superfluous. Watching him suffer to the point of losing his voice, I could only listen silently, unable to utter any words of comfort. Because I have never experienced his pain, nor can I comprehend his despair. I sympathize with him, but I also remember my mission. I'm here. I won't let you die. My words further provoked Thomas. The veins at his temples bulged as he glared at me in fury. Why don't I even have the right to die? As the villain abandoned by everyone in the book and one whose willpower far surpasses ordinary people. The determination in his eyes told me I couldn't easily change his suicidal thoughts. Rather than pulling him back from the brink of death time, and again it's better to go along with him. Ignoring his struggles, I mustered all my strength to lift and place him in the wheelchair. He still tried to get up, so I braced my hands on the wheelchair handles, caging him in. Leaning closer, I looked solemnly into his eyes and said, do you really want to die that badly? He met my gaze, without speaking, the lifelessness in his eyes undiminished. Fine, I can help you. I can even tell you a way to die that won't trouble anyone else, and is quick and painless. Hearing this, a spark lit up in Thomas's previously lifeless eyes. Just as he was about to ask, I pressed a finger to his lips. But before that, you have to promise me one condition. For after returning, I immediately wheeled Thomas into the bathroom. After repeatedly confirming he didn't need help bathing, I reluctantly stepped out. By the time I finished my shower and brewed ginger tea, Thomas finally emerged from the bathroom at a snail's pace in his wheelchair. Noticing his hair was still dripping, I casually grabbed a towel. Dried his hair like ruffling a puppy's fur before he could resist. Removed the towel to reveal an ethereally beautiful face beneath the slightly damp tousled hair, accentuated by his gloomy, aloof demeanor. Absolute celestial perfection, truly divine. All the exhaustion from hours of effort vanished in an instant. Women really need to watch these kinds of things to find the strength to keep fighting for life. What conditions? Thomas interrupted my admiration, asking what terms he needed to agree to for me to tell him that quick death method. I shoved a bowl of ginger soup into his hands. Drink this, and I'll tell you. Without another word, he gulped it down in 2 big swallows like an ox drinking water. His eyes fixed on me, silently urging. Know what kind of iron mouth is that? Doesn't it burn? I shook my head helplessly, took out an A4 sheet, wrote down the conditions, and handed it to him. Thomas took the A4 paper and asked in confusion, bucket list. Exactly, you wouldn't want to leave regrets after death. Would you list the 3 things you most want to accomplish before dying? If you still want to die after completing them, I'll tell you. Thomas tossed the A4 paper aside and turned to leave. I don't have anything like that. I grabbed his wheelchair. How could that be? Everyone has things they want to do, but haven't accomplished there's no way you don't. Seeing no reaction from him, I had no choice but to administer a strong dose of medicine. How did your legs get broken? How did your company collapse? Don't you feel resentful? Are you just going to let it go? Though Thomas didn't turn around, the veins on his hands gripping the wheelchair handles bulged violently. His body trembled slightly, betraying the depth of his bitterness. But the tightly clenched hands soon slackened in defeat. I'm already a cripple. What good does it do to be unwilling? I played my trump card. Do you still want to know that method or not? Thomas snatched the pen from my hand with resentment. I immediately took the hint and picked up the discarded A4 paper he had thrown, presenting it to him with both hands. He took the paper and started writing without pause. Clearly, he had already thought about it countless times in his heart. Congratulations, as long as there are still wishes and desires, you're guaranteed not to die. I watched excitedly as Thomas wrote down 3 things. First thing, go to an amusement park and ride the carousel. Not bad, even the big shot has a childlike heart. Second thing, bake a Peppa Pig cake. A bit too childish. No. Third thing, go stargazing at a campsite. As Thomas finished writing, the questions in my mind grew larger. Wait, you were once a formidable villain who dominated the scene. Why is your dying wish so refreshingly unconventional? This doesn't match your ruthless and domineering character at all. No, actually it does. The plot of the book unfolded in my mind. 5. When Alice the mother remarried into a wealthy family with her 7-year-old son Thomas, she took him and her stepson Vincent to the amusement park for the first time. Thomas wanted to ride the carousel, but Vincent mocked him, saying it was only for girls. To please her stepson, the mother didn't let Thomas ride the carousel. He only accompanied his stepson in playing the projects the boy wanted. Thomas never got to ride the carousel and never had another chance to ride one again. It was a school assignment to make a cake with a parent and bring it to school. Thomas and his mother spent the whole afternoon making his favorite Peppa Pig cake. Mom gave the cake to Vincent, who hadn't participated at all. Vincent disdainfully knocked over the cake. Mom scolded Thomas for not caring about his younger brother and failing to understand his preferences. Yet she forgot that Peppa Pig was his favorite cartoon. As for stargazing at the campsite, Mom never took Thomas along, because Vincent had too much equipment to bring. There wasn't enough room in the car. He stood at the front door watching as Mom, his stepfather, and stepbrother happily left together as a family of 3. Only he was left behind. Not long after came the kidnapping incident, when he was completely abandoned by his mother. Though they were just 3 small things, each one represented a step in Thomas's childhood memories of losing his mother. They were the deepest regrets buried in his heart. He truly wanted to die. That's why he sought to erase these regrets before his end. Even though the person he longed for most wasn't by his side, I immediately felt a surge of pity and unconsciously patted his head. Poor kid, don't look at me like that. I don't need your sympathy. He raised his hand to block mine, but a faint blush spread across his cheeks. I noticed when I changed his clothes last time, he doesn't reject my physical contact. In fact, he seems to like it a little. Yet he insists on being stubborn. What a contradictory personality. Still, he is quite adorable when flustered. Seizing the chance, I patted his head again before quickly running off to make preparations. Nor did she notice the slight curl at the corner of Thomas's lips. 6 early the next morning, we set off for the amusement park. I'd forgotten it was Saturday. The park was packed with people, and there were even more children eyeing the carousel with eager anticipation. So as soon as the project started, I pushed Thomas and sprinted toward the merry-go-round. Ha 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 ha, who understands the joy of competing with children for things? The warm wind brushed against my face, children's laughter filled my ears, and the whole world seemed to brighten. Until I huffed and puffed holding Thomas and couldn't climb onto the horse. No matter what, then I stopped laughing. Smiles never disappear, they just transfer. They transferred to the faces of the kids who hadn't outrun me earlier. They were already seated with their parents, waiting to start. Under the gaze of the entire room, Thomas's face had turned redder than a boiled shrimp. I warned him, if you dare say you won ride now, I'll bite you to death. Finally, with the staff as assistants, Thomas and I managed to board the carousel horse. The carousel started moving as the music began playing. Time and space seemed to rewind with each circling rotation. The past neglect and resentment from being unloved gradually faded away. What remained was the sound of laughter by his ear and that radiant smile gazing at him. In her eyes was the warmth he had always yearned for. Thomas's heart was struck with a sudden blow. The love longed for over the years finally received its response at this moment. As the music ended, the carousel came to a halt. Childhood was drawn to a close. What followed was the world of adults. I pushed Thomas to ride the drop tower roller coaster and the giant swing. I was thrilled. There is so much more to amusement parks than just carousels, so many fun things to do. Thomas had no time to respond. He was bent over a trash can, vomiting uncontrollably. In the afternoon, we went to the baking studio and made a Peppa Pig cake. We also made Neza and the little milk dragon together. Though they turned out quite abstract, the joy on Thomas's flour-dusted face was unmistakable. At night, Thomas and I lay quietly in the tent at the campsite. We gazed at the star-filled sky, watching time flow by and life endlessly renew itself. I hope this patchwork approach can soothe his tattered body and mind a little, cover his sorrows with happy memories, planting seeds of love in his parched land. In the future, when he thinks of amusement parks, it won't just be the regrets beneath the carousel. There'll also be the screams from the drop tower and the thrills of the roller coaster. Seeing the cake no longer brings thoughts of scolding and abandonment, but also the happy smile still there after being smeared with flour. I was delightfully imagining that I was about to complete the redemption mission. Yet Thomas chose this inopportune moment to speak. What's that method you mentioned? I bolted upright and fired off a soul-searching question. What, you still want to die? Thomas didn't move his face, smiling, but his words sent chills down my spine. Thank you for spending today with me. I have no regrets left. I wanted to rage, to roar, to unleash a torrent of curses, but that breath surged up to my throat only to be stifled back down. Yeah, it's not so easy to dispel someone's will to die. Just like how wanting to live doesn't mean you can keep living. I collapsed back down in defeat. Speak of the death that weighs on your heart. The best way to die is by someone else's hand. You won't get a chance to take it back, and you'll die completely. Because that's exactly how I died. My own mother personally pulled out my oxygen tube. 7 At this moment, laughter and chatter from nearby shattered the silence around us. Both Thomas and I instinctively turned to look in that direction. The lights were on over there, and I could clearly see it was a family of 4. A middle-aged couple and a young couple. Their words were light, their smiles radiant. An overflowing happiness enveloped them like that warm pool of light. Yet the light was miserly, never reaching this side of the darkness. In the dim light, Thomas's silent trembling and his unblinking profound gaze told me everything. Those people must be the male and female leads who ruined Thomas, drove him to bankruptcy, and cost him his legs along with his birth mother and stepfather who abandoned him. I grasped his hand, stopping his trembling. My words made him instantly turn his head to look at me. Perhaps you could ask them for help. They hate you so much they'd surely be willing to do it for you. You could even take them all out in one go, no loss at all. The commotion here caught the attention of the male and female leads over there. A blinding flashlight beam suddenly swept over, illuminating Thomas's face. It was so intense that he raised his hand to shield his eyes. The male lead, Vincent, walked over and upon recognizing Thomas, looked utterly disgusted. Why is it you? Why aren't you dead yet? Just one sentence was enough to confirm this was someone I despised. The others also came over one after another. Thomas's birth mother Alice recognized him, and her previously kind and gentle expression immediately twisted into disgust. What are you doing here? I'm warning you, don't even think about harming Vincent again, or don't blame me for disregarding mother-son ties. She and the male lead were truly cut from the same cloth, both equally foul-mouthed. I stood up, blocking the tense figure of Thomas. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out a nanny's essential tool, a fruit knife. As I unfolded the blade, both Vincent and Alice nervously stepped back. What are you trying to do? TCH, and he calls himself the male lead. What a coward. I turned the knife handle around and pressed it into Alice's hand. Don't just talk big. If you dislike him so much, then kill him. Alice was so frightened she immediately dropped the fruit knife. I scoffed. What's scared? If you're scared, then shut the hell up. Every single one of you, first, second, third, all owe him your lives. Without him you'd have been smoke from some crematorium chimney long ago. And yet you dare curse him. Without gratitude, you're the ones who deserve to die most. I even scolded the female lead, who had just arrived, and was about to perform her fake tearful act. She immediately straightened up after being berated. That's right, if Thomas hadn't saved her back, then her gambling-addicted father would have sold her off long ago. Behind me, Thomas burst into laughter. What a mood killer. I finally get to show off. For once, couldn't you just hold it in? Alice, provoked by that mocking laugh, immediately contorted her well-maintained face. What are you laughing at? If it weren't for you dragging me down, I wouldn't be struggling like this, and looked down upon by others. What right do you have to laugh? You should have died long ago. Your very existence tortures me. Why won't you just die already? I slapped her hard across the face. The pampered rich wife, spoiled for years, had never suffered such humiliation. As Alice screamed and lunged at me, I picked up a fruit knife and pressed it against her neck. Go ahead, say one more word. Alice fell to the ground in fright. Get out, I barked with surprising vigor from the shadows, knife in hand, sending the male and female lead scrambling to drag Alice away. They didn't even bother packing their camp, just jumped in their car and sped off. Before fleeing, they still found time to shout, "Madman, you're all madmen." I turned to Thomas and raised an eyebrow. See, you're so consumed by self-destruction that you want to die, yet they only complain you're not dying fast enough. Better to go crazy. Insanity is the best cure for idiots. Thomas couldn't help but curl the corner of his lips again. He didn't speak, just stared at me with those inscrutable eyes, as if he wanted to dissect me inside and out. His gaze made my scalp tingle, so I changed the subject to avoid his eyes. So, do you still look at the stars? I want to treat my legs. All right, let us go back. What did you say? I said, I want to treat my legs.
So sudden.
Well, that was unexpected. Did that bastard male lead's family piss him off so much he doesn't want to die anymore? Then what was the point of all my previous efforts? The system promptly responded, consider yourself unlucky. Fuck off. The system wisely made itself scarce. Right away, boss. It's actually quite understandable. Thomas has endured so much suffering since childhood, yet he has always managed to stand back up. How could he be easily defeated this time? He possesses an inherently strong core. It's just that this time he was pushed too far and needs time to recover. Besides, if he really wanted to die, he would have done it long ago. How could a few words of emotional blackmail from me make him give up? Deep down, he is still that abandoned little boy. A tiny bit of love and attention is enough to satisfy him. 9 Thomas no longer thought about suicide and began seriously treating his legs. I accompanied him back and forth between home and the hospital, watching him fall and get back up again and again during rehabilitation. My heart ached for him. That must hurt so much, perhaps sensing my concern. He lifted his sweat-drenched face and gave me a reassuring smile. Then he went right back to training. Can't help but admire a true master of endurance. No wonder you succeed at everything you do. After completing today's rehabilitation session, I wheeled Thomas back. I asked him what the first thing he wanted to do was after standing up. I didn't catch his answer, because my attention was completely stolen by the commotion in the hospital lobby. 2 groups of people were in a standoff. A couple was trying to push through with their terminally ill daughter in a wheelchair, while doctors and nurses blocked their way. The doctor pleaded earnestly. The patient will definitely recover with surgery. We haven't given up yet. Why are you giving up? The woman pushing the wheelchair looked distressed. Her illness costs too much money, it's several thousand a day, now not to mention the follow-up treatments, how could we possibly afford all that for her? The nurse was indignant. You were just bragging in the ward about your family's recent demolition compensation, how could you not have money for your daughter's treatment? Hearing the nurse's words, the woman immediately became wary. That money is meant for my son's bride price to get him a wife. How could I give it to this worthless invalid who's about to die? What kind of scheme are you pulling? Did she bribe you to rob me? The two sides began to argue fiercely while no one paid attention to the despairing girl slumped in her wheelchair, her eyes alone revealing a desperate longing to live. My hands gripping the wheelchair handles trembled slightly. It was like seeing my past self, begging my mother not to give up on me, pleading with her to let me live. Yet she still took the surgery money I'd painstakingly saved for my younger brother and, with her own hands, pulled out my oxygen tube. How desperately I wish someone would appear to save me back then. But I was abandoned by that time and space with no one hearing the voice of my heart. I suffocated to death under my mother's gaze. Now seeing the same scene again, that same suffocating feeling rushes back. It feels as if a giant hand is tightly gripping my throat. The air was being squeezed out bit by bit, her open mouth unable to utter a single sound, until a familiar voice rang out. I'll cover the surgery costs, get her into surgery immediately. That invisible hand vanished. Fresh air flooded my lungs and I came back to life, once more. I lowered my head and looked at my right hand held tightly in his. Thomas's deep reassuring voice sounded in my ear. Don't worry, she'll be fine. Tears came gushing out uncontrollably. 10 apart from Thomas, my tear-blurred eyes could no longer make out anything else around me. I only felt myself being pulled by Thomas to sit on his lap. With one hand, he maneuvered the wheelchair, while the other patted my back. When I finally stopped crying and came to my senses, we had already returned home. I released my arms from around Thomas's neck and climbed down from him. For the first time, I felt too shy to lift my head in front of him. He didn't laugh at me, nor did he ask why. He just explained to me that he had taken care of everything regarding that girl, telling me not to worry. I only found out later that after the girl recovered from surgery, she completely severed ties with her parents. She vanished entirely from her parents' sight. Her biological brother somehow developed a gambling addiction and soon squandered all the compensation money from the demolition, dragging my parents down into the mud with me. I knew Thomas must have been pulling the strings behind the scenes. After all, he is the story's ultimate villain. But it felt satisfying. After this incident, the dynamic between Thomas and me underwent a subtle shift. He used to guard against me, fiercely afraid I'd take the slightest advantage. Now he either forgets to bring clothes when showering or deliberately leaves his hair wet. He walks over to me shirtless with a towel, asking me to dry his hair for him. Water droplets from his hair trail down his chest, sliding all the way to the freshly regained 8-pack abs he has been working on. Then it disappeared into the depths again. I stared at the spot where the droplet vanished, swallowing unconsciously. A warm trickle flowed from my nose, dripping onto Thomas's leg where he sat in the wheelchair. Thomas raised his eyebrows in surprise. Our gazes met in midair. After 3 seconds of silent eye contact, I threw the towel at his face and fled to my room as if escaping. All I heard was the man's low chuckle behind me. After another period of rehabilitation, he could stand again. His height of 185 meters became tangible. It used to be me looking down to speak with him, but now it was his turn to lower his head, watching me bustle about. Wherever I went, he would follow on crutches. They're not even pretending anymore. Every now and then they pat my head or nuzzle against my hand. Sometimes they suddenly lower their head to gaze into my eyes. The intensity in those eyes made even this seasoned veteran lose composure. I could only shove the clothes to be hung into his hands. Let him do some housework instead of always focusing on me. His feelings are so obvious, how could I not understand? It's just that ever since Thomas gave up on seeking death, the system disappeared. I don't know if I can continue to stay in this world. I didn't want to give him hope only to disappoint him later, so I could only remain unresponsive. He also respected my stance and didn't pierce through that thin layer of paper between us. As if isolated from the world, we lived a relaxed, carefree, and quietly blissful life together. Until the uninvited guest appeared, shattering this tranquility. 11. If Thomas had the ability to create one business empire, he had the ability to create a second. No longer despondent, he began actively working on rehabilitation while simultaneously reviving his career. Soon he launched an attack against the male lead Vincent, reclaiming the enterprises and commercial territories that had originally belonged to him. Vincent, who rose to power by relying on women, was utterly defenseless. He could only send his stepmother Alice to plead for mercy. But Alice, who had grown accustomed to mistreating her own son, was incapable of humbling herself to beg. The moment Thomas opened the door, his own mother slapped him across the face. He chuckled lightly and shut the door directly. No matter how Alice knocked or shouted outside, he paid no attention. Only then did Alice realize her biological son was already different from before. He could no longer be controlled by her words alone. Only then did she remember to speak gently with caring words and plead softly. But it was already too late. Thomas had long ceased to care. When the stepmother failed, Vincent sent the female lead instead. Even his birth mother had been useless, let alone a green tea bitch who only saw Thomas as a stepping stone. Thomas didn't even see her directly, having security escort her away. At the same time, he accelerated his revenge against Vincent. Soon the Vincent family went bankrupt. Alice, who pursued a wealthy lifestyle, and the female lead lost everything overnight. They tried to go back to Thomas again only to be met with another rejection, as one might expect. So without hesitation, they abandoned the Vincent father and son, taking with them what little remained of the Vincent family as assets. The next time they heard about them was in the news. Vincent found Alice and the female lead drugged them unconscious and stuffed them into his car. He drove the car onto the mountain road, sending them all plummeting over the cliff. So not everyone is like Thomas, to still stand up bravely after suffering bankruptcy and betrayal. He has already done remarkably well. Despite this, he was still affected by the news. He locked himself in the study for half a day before emerging. The past was left behind after Thomas's leg fully healed. The long-absent system finally reappeared. Hello host, I'm back from my business trip. Did you miss? Sorry, I didn't see anything. Though he had no physical form, I could almost see him covering his eyes. I immediately climbed off Thomas and pulled down the shirt ID rucked up on his chest, hiding those telltale marks of passion. Only when the embarrassment faded did I finally have time to think. Is the system here to take me away? The system has returned to him. I was temporarily assigned an urgent task recently, and couldn't contact you. Didn't expect you to progress so quickly, huh? Quick, not really. I haven't completely devoured Thomas yet. Had I known earlier, I wouldn't have held back before. Your redemption mission has been successfully completed. You've earned a chance to be revived. So it's time to go back after all. However, since I performed exceptionally well in this emergency mission, I've applied for you to stay in this world. Will you return or choose to remain here? Stay here. Without even thinking, the words left my lips as I made my choice. You should be said so earlier. I almost thought I wouldn't get to eat Thomas. You reconsider. No reconsideration. I don't want to go back to being a blood bag anymore. Alright, you should go now. I've got serious business to attend to. Got it. Take it easy. You two call me anytime if you need anything. System S after sales service will definitely satisfy you. Don't forget to give a 5-star review. After seeing off the system, I knocked on Thomas's door again. Tonight my life must reach its perfect conclusion. Thomas side story 1. The new nanny has a lot of unconventional reasoning. I'm about to die. Why should I care about so many things? Until she changed my clothes, her warm hands touching my body. I finally feel alive, my heart still beating. How pathetic of me to crave even a caregiver's warmth. So, I wanted to see what absurd reasoning she'd come up with next. When she jumped into the river after me, I felt a pang of regret. Why should someone as detested as me by even my own mother drag down a vibrant life? I should die quietly, erasing my failed existence along with it. Yet she spoke shocking words, determined to propose a death method that is both decisive and wouldn't burden others. I'll see what new tricks she can come up with. I never expected her to start tormenting me first. I'll never write another bucket list in this lifetime. I never want to go to an amusement park again. I shouldn't have been fooled by those burning eyes into trusting her. What a scam this healing childhood regrets thing is. It's practically luring me in to be slaughtered. Getting hit by a car was less terrifying than being swung by that giant pendulum hammer. Yet strangely, for the first time I felt, it's good to be alive after all this time. I finally learned her name is Hannah. Some people just have names that sound beautiful when spoken. Yet someone as unlovely as me still craves her attention. So I asked, anyway, what was that method you mentioned? The undissolved sorrow in Hannah's eyes told me I'd made another mistake. I hadn't yet figured out how to make amends when those who brought me nightmares appeared again. I was prepared to be pierced by sharp arrows once more. Yet Hannah stood before me, blocking Alice and Vincent's line of sight. That small figure seemed to possess tremendous strength. The heavy stone that had weighed on my heart for years was effortlessly lifted away. Looking back, those so-called boulders were mere grains of sand, utterly unworthy of attention. A light uniquely mine now shines directly into the dark, damp well where I'd been trapped. It stirs in me a longing to climb out of this black hole and see the azure sky beyond. I want to stand up. 3. Rehabilitation is truly painful. But every time I look back, I can see her standing firmly behind me, giving me that encouraging look. Tell me I can definitely do it. Tell me I deserve her company and her waiting. Then it wouldn't hurt so much. So when she asked me what the first thing I wanted to do after standing up was, I answered without hesitation, I want to walk behind her. She used to push the wheelchair while walking behind me. From now on, it's my turn to walk behind her, to be her support and her protector. I never expected this opportunity would come so soon. I don't know what she has been through, but the way she looked at that girl and the pain in her expression were all too familiar to me. I didn't want her to be trapped by the past like I was. So I spoke up to break the spell that had fallen over her. She too should start a new life. Like her name suggests, may she have a sweet new beginning. For when she lay sobbing uncontrollably on top of me, yet her hands still wandered restlessly everywhere. That's when I knew she liked this body. I was so happy I couldn't sleep all night. I came up with dozens of plans to seduce her, but she seemed to be wary of something. Even when excited to the point of nosebleeds, she wouldn't take the bait. Was I being too subtle? Then I'll stop pretending. I'll deliver myself straight to her bed. She seems to really like bows, so I tied a bow around the Adam's apple. I held her in my arms. I know you like me just as much as I like you. While I hesitated about whether I was qualified to redeem others, I grabbed her hand and placed it on the bow. Come, unwrap your gift. She really did like bows this time. She didn't refuse. It's just that halfway through I got kicked out again. Fortunately, she seemed to have figured it out, as if she had resolved a major problem. This night was still perfect. Both her life and mine have also moved towards perfection. The end.